I got this floor mat, but my computer chip has holes in it, so it's not helpful.
Or what?
Just because it's heavy, I guess, or because I'm obese.
Wait, why do you need a mat?
Well, just like it's like a carpeted room, and it's got like a computer mat on the floor. Not a computer mat, but like, what are those things called?
Floor mat?
I guess, but it's like a plastic floor mat. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but why are you telling me about it?
Well, because I just had to like scoot because I'm in my like. Do you have like that spot on the couch that you just sit in all the time, and then there's like a divot? Do you have that? That's a Brian problem.
I have a nice couch. I don't know. No, I don't really. Hi, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about either.
That's fine. You guys like, and I don't know if I just got the wrong thickness of like. It's not a floor mat. It's like the plastic thing that goes under your computer chair to save your floors, right? That's a different thing. That's not. It's called something else. I don't know what it is though.
I don't know. I think if I was Google searching that, I would call it a floor mat. But
no.
Anyway.
Computer floor mat.
Well, y'all are from all over. We got one from Toronto.
That was sweet.
All right.
I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about work on one of my days off.
Yeah, and wait, are you?
Despite me being in scrubs, I'm not going to work tonight.
Thank you. Me, like, I'm excited to talk about work after work. No, just kidding. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about work because I feel like all we talk about is pre-PA stuff. And
that's true.
We're not talking about that tonight.
Yes.
We're talking about
it's going to be a nice change.
Yeah, exactly. So, great. Let me make sure I got your Coke.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Is that how you make it through night shift? Is that the secret?
Yeah, well, yeah. I think so. I've been doing this for like 7 years, and I've had like I drink like a monster every time I go in. But I've started to cut back. Yeah, I know it's terrible. I started to cut back, and I actually have been sleeping better, which is it's weird how that turns out. If you don't drink, and you know, what's the equivalent of like 4 cups of coffee, you end up sleeping more better.
Huh.
English, yeah. So, but no, vanilla Coke is just a special treat that I have on my days off mostly. It just keeps me going, you know.
I had to take a picture.
No, you gotta get one.
What?
I was gonna say, do you want to get one drinking my vanilla Coke? But
you can take one of that. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. If y'all have been to our pre-PA conference or what else have we done? A couple of our webinars.
I've done like 5 or something, haven't we?
Yeah. Y'all have probably, you know,
gotten tired of us.
You kind of already know who we are, but if you don't, we are welcome. I am Savannah. I am a dermatology PA in Georgia, but we are not talking about me tonight. If you want the replay link from when I talked about my job, we will make sure you have that. But we are talking about Brian's job tonight.
Yes.
And I'll let him do an introduction. But before we jump into that, I'm going to do some housekeeping stuff. And y'all keep the questions, the comments, the questions coming. We have a list of questions that people have sent in on Instagram. And so, but like go ahead and send your questions because we're adding those to a list right now. And keeping track of them so that we can make sure we try to answer as much as possible so that you really get a feel for different things. So anyway, but tonight we're talking about Brian and his job. This, you know, can have a lot of names. I'm calling it a day in the life series, virtual shadowing, but I want to clarify that a little bit because number one, not all programs are accepting these types of experiences. So I would highly recommend that you check with programs before you include any of these events on an application, because let's be honest, this is not anything like shadowing a PA in a real setting where you're seeing them interact with patients and nurses and doctors and all of those things.
It's so hard to like get shadowing experience now. Like I feel so bad for the people that are looking to apply to PA school right now because like no hospitals are allowing shadows because it's such a big liability, and that is just that's nuts. But at my facility, I'm trying to like figure out a way to do it, but it's hard.
It's tough, and a lot of and it's just different. And I think that'll change. Don't give up, y'all. Like, keep looking for shadowing experience.
Yeah, there's still people that are getting hours, like still getting into like shadow with people. It's not to say that you can't find any. It's just a lot more difficult now than it was, unfortunately.
Exactly. So, I mean, just be on the lookout for hours. Keep trying. Same thing with healthcare experience, patient care experience. Like, just keep looking. It is out there. It's just a little bit more difficult right now. But when it comes to this event, so we're not doing any certificates. If you came and shadowed me in real clinic, I would not give you a certificate. It means nothing. So, so no certificates, nothing like that. And we're not providing contact information for applications as well, because we have no way of verifying or guaranteeing that someone was here for a certain amount of time. So, for that reason, I don't feel like it is in good faith to validate that for anyone. Yeah. So, it is up to you if you want to include this on your application. And if the programs you're applying to are okay with that, but ultimately this is for informational purposes. A replay link will be sent out. Last time,
some schools are like saying you can do virtual shadowing, but I think the schools that are doing it are a lot more lax on their requirements and stuff too.
Right. And like you can do maybe 3 hours, or they may not even be like requiring shadowing.
Right. Just recommending it. Yeah.
Things. So your curricular activity, that's a good place to maybe put it. But yeah, that's kind of a good idea. So, but yeah, I know if you watched the first one with me, there were a lot of technical difficulties with the replay link. Like, number one, I don't know why the one in the email didn't work. And then I was trying to get it uploaded to a certain, so where you could sign in and watch all of them at the same time. That also didn't work because the file was too big. I've said it before, I am not technologically savvy. I Google my way through things and hope it works. So I ended up just putting it on YouTube. So if you missed the first one, it is on YouTube. You can watch it there. And then this one, I hope that a replay link will be available. But if not, we will get the video up somewhere, even if that is on YouTube. So, all right. I think that's it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, give us, I think, before we jump in, and I mean, you can take the reins if you want, or I'll kind of lead with questions. But
yeah, I have a rundown of what.
Yeah, well, I want to know your work history.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. Well, yeah. So as Savannah said, my name is Brian Palm. I'm an emergency medicine PA, and I work nights in the ER. I used to work at a trauma center down in Metro Atlanta, but now I'm more in a rural area, smaller hospital. And so tonight, everybody, put on your safari hats, because we're going on a journey, and I'm going to teach you all about what it's like to be a PA. So if you're interested in emergency medicine, maybe you are interested in things like sewing, right? You like sewing and knitting and all that. That's something you get to do in emergency medicine. You get to play dress up. Right, you get to wear gloves and gowns and masks and goggles and safari hats when you want to, right? Puzzles. If you like puzzles, you might enjoy emergency medicine. If you want to get to the bottom of why somebody who stubbed their toe is now saying that they can't see, that might be a reason, why you go into emergency medicine. If you like exploring, if you like, exploring some of the deepest, darkest depths of the human body and finding treasure in that human body, that might be a reason why you pursue emergency medicine, right? All orifices included. So that's all I have. Those are reasons why you might like emergency medicine.
All right. Well.
But anyway, no. The job in and of itself, it is very diverse, and there's you see all kinds of different stuff in the ER, right? Anything you could possibly imagine. I've been doing this for 7 years, and I see something different every single day. Somebody says something to me different every single day that I've never heard before in my life. Like I said, like I had a patient come in by ambulance who stubbed their toe, like they broke it, and then saying like, I can't see. And I said, you can't see because you stubbed your toe. And so like, I've got to make, like, as ridiculous as that sounds, right? Like as an emergency medicine provider, you've got to take all these complaints, these random complaints that people have. Somebody comes in with like a headache or chest pain, or headache and chest pain and abdominal pain and cough and fever and all that stuff, right? You've got to make sure that one of those complaints isn't something life-threatening that's going to kill them, right? That they don't have a life-threatening emergency, and you rule it out. And you send them to a specialist, like, you know, a cardiologist or a dermatologist, like in, you know, Savannah's case. And like, speaking of like, you know, our jobs have a lot of overlap. Like there's like a Venn diagram, right? Where like, you know, my circle, I have like, you know, different kinds of cases on all different specialties or subjects, and yours is mostly on skin. But in the middle, like we both don't get nauseated when we smell blood, pus, and burning hair, you know? So like, that's a common, you know, a common thing for both of us. So, but yeah, no, so it's different. It's different every day. I love it. I love emergency medicine. I don't think I could do anything else just because of, you know, I've been doing it for a few years. But when I graduated school, most of my experience before I went to PA school came from being an ER tech in the same hospital that I worked at as a PA. And so before school, I worked as an ER tech. And then after I graduated, I worked at that hospital as a PA, which was pretty cool. And before I was an ER tech, I was an EMT. I worked on an ambulance, and then I had other various jobs in healthcare. But I liked emergency medicine just because of, you know, how different everything was. Like every patient is totally different. You know, you go from coding a patient in one room, and then the next room, you've got to, you know, handle a kid with a runny nose, you know, so like just the variability of the complaints that you get in the ER keeps things interesting. It's not monotonous at all. You never see the same thing twice, or, you know, pretty much not the same thing twice. Everybody's different. Everybody's dealing with their own struggles, both, you know, physically and emotionally. And my job is to kind of get to the bottom of it and figure out like what is the root cause of their symptoms. And just like I said, to make sure that it's not something that's going to kill them or is life-threatening. They need to be admitted to the hospital for. So, but yeah, it's fun. I wish everybody could come shadow me, but now, like I said, it's terrible. I love having students come shadow me, but not now. Not with coronavirus.
Weird times, which somebody did ask, and I think, I mean, we can go ahead and like get this off the table, or I don't know, whatever. Yeah. But how, like, what has been your biggest challenge so far during COVID, or changes to your job, or how has it been affected? Because I feel like, I don't know, and I think like sometimes it's hard, like a lot of pre-PA students haven't been able to talk to PAs, and you see a lot of PAs like don't have jobs or losing their jobs, and
right.
So yeah, how has it affected your job, and then like your job, like going to work?
Yeah, well, so I'll start off with like my job I guess my job itself, they're both kind of related, but like my overall, like the hours that I work and like my shifts and all that, like since coronavirus started. And so back in March, we all had to start taking call, like just in case we got coronavirus surge. Like we had tents in front of the hospital, like ready to just take patients on. You know, Georgia's a hot zone now, and you know, was kind of in, or parts of Georgia were back in March. And so we were ready, you know, just in case things got like New York or New Jersey or anything like that. And, you know, good thing that they weren't. And so what started off as, hey, you guys might have more responsibility, then turned into, probably because we're a rural hospital and it's not people that are living on top of each other and going to the market every day, like in bigger cities like New York City, right? Like, I think a lot of people in New York have to go out every day to, you know, they don't have big grocery stores and stuff in New York City. Like, they have grocery stores, of course, but like you go typically to like get your things for the day or a couple days and then, you know, come home, and you're not living on top of each other. Whereas in a neighborhood, you know, there's not a lot of people like socializing as much, or at least like people can social distance a little bit easier. So anyway, so what initially started off as, you know, we're ready to surge, you might have some extra responsibilities. Then in like April and May, like our ERs were actually pretty slow considering where we thought we were going to be. And so none of us got our hours cut necessarily, like we didn't lose shifts, whereas a lot of PAs in different specialties that worked in the hospital, like I know some ortho PAs that like stopped working, you know, because hospitals weren't allowing elective procedures, which is like shoulder and knee replacements and hip replacements and stuff. Like those PAs that were doing elective procedures were kind of out of work, you know, and weren't going into work. So as far as that's concerned, like I'm very fortunate that my hours weren't cut. That's right. One of the day shift, they had a triage shift that that they cut out. And so some people might have had like 1 or 2 shifts for the month that were decreased. But I worked nights, and so I wasn't affected by it as much. There were some of my coworkers that had to take 1 or 2 less shifts just because we weren't busy enough to fill the position. I guess our patient load decreased so much. So that's that part. Now we're busier than we were before coronavirus. Like it's, you know, people just are going out and doing whatever the hell they want to do now without wearing masks. And so, you know, let alone not wearing masks, but, you know, just like the normal stuff, right? Like the chest pains and abdominal pains and vomiting and all that. And now the kids are going back. We see a lot more kids in the ER because parents that send their kids to school, like, are worried, well, now, you know, do they have coronavirus and want them tested and stuff? So it's busier now, I feel like, than it was even before all this mess. So, but regarding my job, when I'm just like rambling on. If you like want me to stop,
you're great. This is exactly what I did. Okay. So yeah, you're good. And
I'm just gonna keep talking and chat. Like I see like a bunch of questions popping up. Like if I glance over during my ADD rant, like I'll answer as best I can.
Well, and that's what I kept doing. I had to stop looking at chat and just look at my document. So, yeah. But you're like, you just go and
all right, I'm just gonna keep you on. Yeah. But day-to-day practice wise, you know, initially we were taking you know, a ton of precautions. We still are, obviously, but you know, every patient that came in, we were like wearing an N95, a gown, and all this other stuff, and then we would have to throw everything away after we saw the patient, because like we didn't know what the hell this thing was like back in March, right? Like we saw videos from other sides of the world, like people dying, and like, you know, we didn't know. And so we were just trying to do the best we could to take care of people. And now we've kind of got a better handle on things 6 months later or so. And, you know, like I told one of my collaborating physicians this, you know, I don't think I'm going to see another patient without an N95 in my career now, because you don't know who has this thing. And like, I don't want to bring it home to my family and get, you know, my parents sick or grandparents sick or whatever. And so I'm taking as many precautions with everybody as I possibly can. And so if you come in for like an ankle sprain or a stubbed toe, I don't know why I remember that guy. That was like 4 years ago at this point. But anyway, I'm still wearing an N95. And I'm, you know, when I'm talking to you, I'm not as close to you as I, you know, likely was beforehand. I'm more, you know, I'm kind of not in the corner of the room, but less awkward than the corner of the room. But I'm definitely not as close as I used to be. But I'm taking more precautions with everybody, like I said, just because, you know, you don't know who's got what. Like so back in April, we had this lady come in for, it was like a post-op complication. She had a hip replacement like a week ago, and she was doing fine. And then all of a sudden, like, or over a course of like 24 hours or so, she started to act strange, right? Like altered mental status type complaint. She had a fever when she came in, and we were like, oh, well, it's a post-op complication, wound infection. And so everybody's in there. I had my N95 mask on because I'm like, forget it. I'm not seeing anybody without an N95 mask on. But everybody was in there as if it was like a hip post-op, you know, complication. And then we hook her up to the monitor and stuff, and she starts coughing, and her oxygen saturation goes down to 86%. And we're like, hey, have you been coughing? And she's like, yeah, and I'm short of breath, like all this stuff. So like, you know, she probably had coronavirus. And like, you just don't know, you know, like people come into the ER I had the other night, had a mom and bring her kid in, and because her kid was, had a slight, what was it, a cough or a fever without any other symptoms. And then she was like, well, I just want him checked. But she checked in too. She was like, I've got a lymph node that's large under my armpit that I want checked out. And since we were here, I figured I might as well just come in. But she sat in the waiting room for like an hour before she told anybody, like, hey, I tested positive for coronavirus a couple of days ago. And it's like, you know, you just don't know who's got
We're seeing that too. I'll just comment like on a private practice setting, and I don't know if it's just because people feel like a medical place is safer. I don't know, but like we've had patients come in and we have a little screening thing, and they'll say like, "I just tested positive," or "My husband tested positive yesterday," and it's like,
yeah.
So
I mean, it's like, and this is a very difficult time, like regardless of what you think of coronavirus, right? Like you and I and other people that, you know, younger than us, like chat and stuff, that are young and healthy and know with medical problems, like by and large, we're all going to be fine. Like if you get it, if all of us had coronavirus, most of us would obviously be fine. My concern is that like, I don't want to spread it to somebody that won't be fine, you know? And so I'm not worried that I'm going to die of coronavirus. Like if I get it, I'm concerned that I spread it to somebody who then will get very sick, like die or not, right? Like, I don't want to spend 2 nights in a hospital. Are you kidding me? Like I'm in and out of that place. Like I'm not staying any longer than I have to in that place, let alone me wanting to like, you know, have somebody else stay in there, you know, if they didn't have to. My hospital's great, but like, I'm just saying, you know, like you don't want to be in the hospital if you don't have to.
Yeah.
So it's hard. Like it, you know, I can't have the same or as much of I feel like the personal connection that I used to have with patients isn't as strong now because they can't see like my facial expressions and can't see me talking or like even my eyes, right? Because I've got like goggles on with everybody too. I wear goggles, a N95 mask, one of these that I brought. I was going to put that on with the safari hat, but I forgot. And then a surgical mask too with everybody. And then if somebody comes in that's highly suspicious for coronavirus, then I'll put on a gown and all that. But yeah, but it sucks. Like you can't, I feel like you can't have the same expression or connection with people. And it's just very like, I even notice myself, like, you know, with patients that have, you know, cough or shortness of breath and stuff, like I am more aware of like, I'm not getting as close to this patient or like, I'm not, you know, examining them as close as I typically would, like with somebody else, you know, like, you know, standing back a little bit while I listen to them instead of like, you know, getting in closer and I don't know.
Yeah.
This whole thing, like, so I'm just ready for it to be over, but like, here comes flu season and like, it's going to be the same thing. It's just, you know, coronavirus sucks. Down with coronavirus.
Yeah. Maybe flu won't be as bad because people are kind of wearing masks.
Kind of a pessimist. So
yeah. Well, I don't know if you can tell. I like have a pressure sore on my nose from my N95.
Yeah, I get like little abrasions and stuff too. Or like when I get off work, like my face is like indented.
It's mushed, yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, so we wear them just because I'm in people's faces all day long. Like,
yeah, like
I have to get in their face. So
right. You are like in their face.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't have that I don't have that luxury. I'm not in people's faces all day, but I saw some people asking like, how long are my shifts? Like in the ER.
That's what I was going to say. Can you just run us through like your schedule? Like, like in a week or something? I don't know.
So like, can I pull it up? Is that?
Sure.
I'll show you my schedule. I probably should have done this before. Sorry, chat. So it's usually like 2, 3, 4 days on and then 2, 3, or 4 days off. I usually work like 14 or 15 shifts a month. I can probably show you this. I don't think there's anything. So this is like my August schedule here. And I work the green days. The blue days I don't work, but like, so it's like 3 on, 3 off, or 4 off, 2 on, 2 off, 2 on, 2 off, 3 on, 2 off. So I'm in the middle of a nice stretch right there. But like, so, I saw somebody ask earlier, is there a way to do like 7 on, 7 off? Like it depends on the facility, right? And so like some places at my old job, I used to work like, what was it, 16 or 17 shifts, and they were 8-hour shifts. Whereas now I work 14 or 15 10-hour shifts. And so I work less shifts, but I get like the same, if not more hours because I'm working 10-hour shifts instead of 8-hour shifts. Some ERs work 12-hour shifts. You know, and like some ERs will have different shifts where you know, like if you work the afternoon shift, it's 1 to 9. And if you work the morning shift or the evening shift or whatever, it's 5 to 5 or something, you know, it's a 12-hour shift instead. At my facility, there's like, there's 5 different shifts. And so there's a 7 to 5. I'm going to do my best here. 7 to 5, I think 9 to 5, 11 to 9, and then 4 to 2, 4P to 2A, and then 9P to 7A, which is what I work. And so they don't rotate me through because I just work nights. And so my schedule stays the same. Even on my days off, like if I have like 2 or 3 or 4 days off, I don't flip my schedule around. And so I'm up until the wee hours of the morning, typically. And I like nights because, you know, it wouldn't work for a lot of people, but I'm very fortunate. And my wife is very supportive. But you know, with working nights and not having a schedule where I work, you know, some mornings, some afternoons, some evenings, some nights, I'm home for dinner every night, and I get to see tell my kids good night every night, which is something that a lot of people don't get, right? So if I worked a shift that was like 1P to 9P at my job, and if I worked that shift 3 days in a row, like I wouldn't see my kids like hardly at all, right? Because or if they were school age, I guess I wouldn't see them because I would be, I guess if I worked until 9, I would still get up and see them in the morning. But like, you know what I mean? Like if you work a later shift or a swing shift, you might not see your kids for like 3 days, which stinks. But, you know, like I said, my wife is very supportive, and that's important too, is finding a partner that's like understanding of your job and your responsibilities and hours and stuff. And like, she knows, like, she doesn't want me being a zombie and like, you know, being tired all the time by like flipping my schedule back and forth, depending on the day. But that doesn't work for everybody. And like I said, I mean, I know that I am lucky to have that. So that's important too, is just kind of realizing how good you got it. And I've always done nights, like since I started. I've been doing this, I'm going on 7 years. It'll be, well, I guess it's like 6.5 years at this point. But I started off, they wouldn't let me do nights initially just because there's less like support on nights. So like you don't have consultants in the hospital, you don't have cardiologists in the hospital, you don't have everybody in the hospital in the middle of the night. You've got to call everybody, everybody's at home. And so you've got to figure out like, well, do I really need to call this person at 3 a.m. and like wake them up? You know, whereas during the day, if you had one of their patients, you'd be like, hey, so-and-so's here, like, just so you know, what do you want us to do? Whereas in the middle of the night, it's like, you know, if you're not, I'm not trying to wake people up in the middle of the night if I don't have to, right? You know, but yes, there's not a lot of support at night. And so for new grads, like when you get out of PA school, you might not be able to start nights initially. And that's just because, again, you don't have as much help. Like, you know, the ER at night runs on like 1/3 of what it does during the day as far as support staff goes. So if that, maybe even like 1/4, I don't know. But you're more kind of on your own, which is kind of cool in and of itself. Like, you know, I find that I have, and this will kind of vary from facility to facility too, but I feel like I have more like freedom and autonomy on nights than I would like during the day, just because the suits are all at home resting in their bed comfortably in their, you know, comfy beds or whatever. So I get away with a lot more at night, I feel like I would during the day, which like is good for me because I think that I would, you know, I as you know, like I'm more outgoing and stuff, and that just kind of works more at night than I think it would during the day. So which is fine. So I have no idea what the initial question was, but I think I answered it.
I think it was just like your schedule, but there are some like other questions like going off of that,
Yeah.
which, and I guess like for people to understand, and I may not even understand, but like one of my good PA friends just switched to doing nights in the ER, Jamie, and like from what I understand, like the benefits are usually, and this may or may not be true, you can correct me, like you typically get like a night differential, like a better pay, maybe less shifts than if you did daytime. Like there are benefits that come with making the sacrifice of doing nights. Yeah.
So usually there is a night stipend at some places. I know a PA that got a job working nights and they're like, no, there's no stipend. Like this is the job, which sucks. But again, it's just different everywhere. But yeah, so that's a benefit. The pay is a benefit. Up until today, I actually got an email today. We'll just say like before today, I could like I kind of make my schedule. Like I kind of suggest what I want my schedule to be, and they kind of work around it. And because I'm the only night person at my facility, and so when I'm on, all of the day shifters have to like rotate through the night shifts. Whereas because we had somebody leave recently, whereas before it was just me and her that did nights. Like when I was off, she was working, and vice versa. But now I kind of have a little bit more freedom and can have been able to like choose my schedule. And so if I want like, you know, a day off here and there, I don't have to go through like the management approval process and all that to get it off. I just say, hey, this is what I want my schedule to be, and they work around it. But today I got an email saying I couldn't do that anymore. So
oh no.
So you know, it's fine. Hopefully that'll change again after a couple more conversations. But again, that's different everywhere too. Like, you know, if you work at a hospital where they just have a scheduler that, you know, lives across the country from you and doesn't know who you are, like they don't care what your schedule is. Like you have to go through and like get approved time off and all that. So yeah, ER, I just haven't glanced over. So like, do I work hourly or salary? So like I work hourly, and my pay structure is like off of like RVUs. It's like a productivity model almost. My job before was almost entirely like RVUs. I got a base like hourly rate. And it's super confusing. I didn't understand it when I first got the job either. I didn't understand it until like 3 months in. I was just like, I think this is fine. I talked to people that work there, and they were like, yeah, it's a good deal. But basically what it is that they take, so like if you get paid $1,000 a month, okay, I'm gonna try to throw them out. But if you get paid $1,000 a month in hourly salary or whatever, right? They take that based on how many shifts you work and like how many hours you work for the month or whatever. Just say that that's $1,000. But during the month, the RVU model is based off of like the complaints that patients have and like the workups that you do and like how sick they are and if they get admitted and like their acuity and all this stuff. They get like designated a number, like an RVU number, and that's based off of like a Medicare law, I think, that was in like whenever, like I think it was before Obamacare, even like in 2004 or something. They assigned RVU numbers to certain patients. And so like I would, like if I saw, say, this is like not to scale at all, but like if I saw 100 patients that all had the RVUs of 10, that would be 1,000, right? So I would even out for the month. But if I saw 15 patients that all had RVUs of 10 for that month, so I had $1,000 in my salary. This is like, nobody's going to understand this. This is pointless.
Probably just Google that, but
anyway, it's a productivity model, and it works. Like it works for me because, you know, I tend to be a hard worker, and like, you know, it encourages you to like work faster, like through patients, and be more productive to earn more money, which is nice. But yes, I am hourly, but it's based on productivity, and it's like super confusing. That you don't. I tell you what, like. Last time I looked at the salary report, it was like 10% of PAs worked on the RVU model. If you find an ER job working in the RVU model, take it, period. Like, yeah, take that rather than like a straight salary, like hourly rate or whatever. Work on the productivity, because that's your salary will be more based on like you and like how you work and well, you know, how you work harder and you get paid more, you know.
Well, and typically like ER visits and procedures are billed higher than
well,
like outpatient or normal stuff. So
yeah, well, and I think it's like another part of the RVU process is that there's like multipliers that are a factor as well. And so like a lot of places you're given a multiplier, and like the RVU multiplier times the amount of RVUs has to outweigh your salary for the month to get like a bonus, a productivity bonus at the end of the month. So it's very confusing, but definitely like do RVUs. So yes, I'm hourly. I'm also productivity based, but it's a good model.
Cool. Okay. People really want to know, and I don't know how, well, okay. They want to know like what a normal shift looks like. So that can probably vary a ton, but maybe just tell us about like your last shift or something.
Yeah. God, that was like 2 days ago. I don't know if I remember that.
I wasn't there, but
so yeah, so I get there at 9 o'clock, right? I typically shower around 8. I'm out of the shower by 8:10, 8:15 or so. I put on my scrubs by like 8:12. I'm just kidding, but I get to work around 9. I get to work around 9, and I go in, and usually like the hours from 8 to 9 or like 7 to 9 are some of the busiest of the entire day. And so when I get there, things are typically on fire. Like there's waiting room full of people. There's patients waiting to be seen, because like everybody's after dinner like, oh, you know what? I think I'm dying. I'm going to go to the ER. That's typically, I guess, how it goes. I've never had that thought before, but usually around that time, I guess people are like off work. They don't want to go during work, and they're like, oh, I think I felt like I wanted to throw up for like 15 minutes. I'm going to go check into the ER and make sure that I'm not dying. So, and that's my job. No, so I'll get there. Let's see. The people that are working before I get there know that like I'm the suture guy and the procedure guy, and so like a lot of patients that get bit by dogs or that have a kid, a toddler that hits his head up against the corner of a door, or things that need to be like repaired, a surgical repair. They know that I'll do it because, again, at my facility it's different and it's different everywhere. But I kind of work. I tend to take more like lower acuity patients, like just to get the process moving when I first get there. And the lower acuity patients are things like ankle sprains and kids with the sniffles and like just little things like possible broken bones, wrists, lacerations, animal bites, things like that. So they leave those for me if they come in if they know that I'm coming in here within the hour. And so when I first get there, it's usually like, ordering x-rays, ruling out different things like fractures and foreign bodies and all that when I first get there. But usually when I get there, I see like 5 to 8 patients in the first hour, and like I just sign up for them all and like go through. And once I sign up for them and I go in and I do my initial exam and then do their workup, and then I get, as far as those patients are concerned, I kind of get a break from like running around the ER because I'm like ordering tests and I'm waiting for those tests to come back. And so once I go through all those patients, then by the time I go through all those patients, then the x-rays are back and the, blood work, if I ordered some, is back. And so then I kind of go back through and I, discharge people that I initially saw when I first got in, or I add things to the workup that, based on like the lab findings or the x-ray findings from when I first saw them. But once that initial like bolus is through from patients that are walking through the door, then like around 11 or 12 o'clock, then people are coming from like by ambulance in the middle of the night, right? It's like older people that are having chest pain or severe abdominal pain, or drunk people. Like I had 5 drunk people come in on Sunday night, which like partying on the Sunday, like going out, but all those people coming by ambulance, and like a lot more ambulances come in the middle of the night. And a lot of the cases that come in the middle of the night are like, if you think about it, right? Like nobody's like sitting in bed at 3 o'clock and be like, well, I shouldn't say nobody because plenty of people do. Like sitting in bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, like, oh, my ankle's been bothering me for 4 days. Like maybe I need to go to the ER. Usually it's stuff like, oh shit, I was woken up like with this really bad chest pain, or I woke up with this really severe abdominal pain and vomiting and I can't go back to sleep type stuff. Like the things that people take ambulances for in the middle of the night are usually things that they can't sleep with. You know what I mean? Like, because if they aren't able to sleep in the middle of the night, they're going to come to the ER and figure out, like, make sure that they're not dying. And so that's what we do. So we do a lot of like heart attack rule outs, and we do a lot of like CT scans on abdomens to make sure it's not appendicitis or a perforated diverticulitis or gallbladder, or things like that. But like the patients that come in the middle of the night are completely different than they do during the day, right? Because if somebody came in the middle of the day for like an ankle sprain, you'd be like, oh yeah, like this person's ankle hurt, they must have twisted it. But like if somebody comes in at like 2:30 in the morning, you better believe if you come in at 2:30 in the morning with ankle pain, I'm like, what are you doing at 2:30 in the morning with your ankle? Like what made you wait to like come in the middle of the night type thing. So we get a lot, not necessarily at this facility now because I'm not at a trauma center, but when I was at a trauma center in the middle of the night, it would be like traumatic car accidents, gunshots, stabbings at like bars and clubs, and still with the heart attacks and the strokes. That's another thing too that we get in the middle of the night is stroke rule out stuff, or like surgical abdomen cases that come in the middle of the night. So like that's also the type of stuff that came in when you work at a trauma center. But now we don't get trauma, and so I don't see a whole lot of that stuff like I used to. Whereas every night it seemed like it was like boom, 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 like gunshot wound, stabbing, traumatic car accident, stuff like that. Speaking of that, I'll talk about somebody asked like what was my favorite or like my most memorable case. And so my wife was away for, I think she was on vacation for a couple of weeks when I was working at the trauma center, and I was working in the middle of the night, and these two guys, they were like, hey, we got gunshot wounds rolling through the front door. So I'm like, all right, well, here we go, right? Drink up.
Get your monster in.
Yeah. So, so these two gunshot wounds roll in the middle of the night, and they're going in wheelchairs, and I'm like, these guys look familiar. Like, I've seen these guys somewhere before. I don't know if it's here or what. But so, like, I ran up to them as they're getting rolled to the trauma rooms, and I'm like, hey, like, you know, what happened? And they were like, oh, we got shot. We were at a party. Somebody stole our liquor, so we chased them, down the stairs and out into the parking lot, and they got into their car and shot at us, which is like so stupid. Like, it's so stupid the reason why people get shot, right? Like, stuff like that. Like, you're running after a bottle of Kamchatka like vodka that costs like $12.99 at the liquor store that somebody's uncle bought them because you couldn't afford. I mean, not that you can afford it. You're not old enough to drink alcohol. But anyway, so they chase. Yeah. I mean, like college, right? Like, I don't know. Anyway, so I was like, well, where were you guys? Oh, at this really crappy apartment complex called XYZ, and that's where I lived. So like, they were my neighbors.
Oh no!
Thank God my wife wasn't home. But like, there was a shootout in the parking lot of the apartment complex, and like,
you moved. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, we didn't live there anymore. But we don't live there anymore, obviously. But we still lived there then, and it's like, what the heck? But anyway, that's the craziest. That's the craziest story that I remember. Because like, just imagine. I mean, that's like crazy shit, right? Like, people don't like shootouts like that. I mean, it's so wild. Like, people just don't think about like in an apartment complex. I mean, bullets could have been going everywhere, and you just don't know. That's the kind of stuff, right? Like, people that are like kind of recognized from the pool, and like they came in with gunshot wounds, and like.
Well, I mean, I think you definitely get like way more interesting stuff than what I would see probably. Like, I see interesting stuff, but like the stories.
This is different, yeah.
Like, that's what I like. Somebody asked if I'd ever do the ER, and I liked it.
Yeah.
I didn't like broken bones, so
yeah.
That's something I like can't deal with.
Mine was eyes. When I was in school, I couldn't do eyes.
Eyes are kind of weird. They're kind of creepy.
Yeah, now it's like whatever.
Well, and that's how it like. So I mean, that's how I feel about blood and stuff. Whatever, but like, so I just was thinking though, because I kind of forgot. But when I was on my ER rotation, it was right after the bad ice storm in Georgia.
Oh God, yeah.
Like kind of during it, but then like as it was clearing. Yeah. So what we kept seeing a ton of was chainsaw injuries. Like, I saw so many chainsaw injuries, which are surprisingly clean cuts. Yeah. But I had to suture a ton because these guys were coming in with their legs and arms.
Yeah, that's the biggest, the longest laceration that I've had to repair. It was like this long, and it went all the way down just about to the bone. It took me hours. Like,
these weren't that bad, thankfully. But yeah, they were like, here's some suture stuff. You know how to do it?
Yeah.
Little PA student, and I was like, yeah.
Yeah. They just put you in a room for an hour or two and kept you busy.
Pretty much. Yeah. So yeah, but I just remember seeing that, and there was a guy who got a fish hook in his ear. Oh yeah, fish hook. Like, we've got a lake around here, and like, it's fish hooks. Out with pliers. Yeah, they get it like in their hands and fingers, and they're so frustrating because like with fish hooks, when they get stuck in you, they've got that barb on the end, and so you can't just like pull them out. And so you've got to push them through. But the problem is that when they get lodged in the tip of your finger, there's not a whole lot of room to like angle them through. And if you use really crappy, like small hooks and they get stuck, like sometimes they can break off, and that's a whole nother issue. But those are, that's one of my least favorite procedures, because sometimes you have to like really like yank them out. And like, when you do that, then you like have a risk of hurting yourself too. One of the most satisfying things though is like putting a like dislocated hip back in place. Just the way like. I saw that.
So when y'all like,
you stand on the table,
you get on the bed and you're like, basically like trying to deadlift this person and like having to like pull, and when it pops back into place, so it's like, yeah, awesome. But that's like people that like orthopedists, like orthopedic PAs, that's the kind of stuff they do every day. They get to use like hammers on bone and all that stuff. But yeah. But like, another crazy, like, I'll tell you another crazy story. I can keep going with these. I'll do one more because it's kind of foul, but So I was working. This was before PA school. I was working as a tech in the hospital, and like on a Wednesday in the fall, at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Like, you know, nobody's in the ER, you know, at that time, or at least that day there wasn't. And so this guy comes in and he's like 55, 60-ish or so, and he comes, he's like sweating bullets. And so I see him like walking in from the parking lot, like, holy crap! Like, this guy's having a heart attack? Like, what's going on? So he's like, you know, like freaking out, like walking through the doors. I'm like, dude, like, what's going on? How can I help you? And he's like looking around, like just sweating bullets, freaking out, like doesn't want to tell me what's wrong. And so he's like, come over here. And so he brings me over and he's like, well, there's no easy way to tell you this, but I've got a giant dildo shoved in my ass. So like, the poor guy. But like, it was an emergency, right? Like he ended up, you know, you got to go to surgery for that stuff sometimes. But like he ended up slipping, I guess. I don't know if he was mopping or what, and like slipped in his kitchen and just ended up falling on it or what. I don't know, but yeah, like it's like stuff like that, like things that you would never ever think of, like, you know,
stuff like, you like read on the internet that you're like, no way, that's not true. Like
I'm
in the ER, it's true.
Listen, like 5-hour energy bottles, Hot Wheels cars, glass and plastic bottles. I mean, you name the orifice, literally, you name the orifice, and I have pulled something out of there. For both males and females, you name the orifice, and I pulled stuff out of there.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Okay, there are some
People
questions.
are very imaginative. They've got a, you know, wide imagination, and good on them, you know.
Yeah. So. Yeah. But wait, hold on. We like haven't even finished your shift yet.
Oh yeah.
We're like an hour in.
All right. So,
we're gonna be here all night, guys.
All right, so 1 hour. No, and so, you know, a lot of my main focus, like I kind of pride myself working nights. Like I feel like it's my job, my responsibility to clear out the waiting room, right? And like it doesn't matter if there's like 3 people in the waiting room or there's 20 people in the waiting room. My job is to get that waiting room empty by the time day shift comes in the next day. And so like I'm pushing it, you know, early in my shift to try and clear that waiting room, because I know that if I clear that waiting room out, the sooner the better, right? Because if there's no patients to be seen, like I can catch up on my CMEs or like read, you know, literature or, you know, medical stuff or, you know, whatever. You know, like if there's things that I need to do, I can do that if there's no patients to be seen. So like I pride myself on the fact that like when the doc comes in the morning, like there's nobody in the waiting room, nobody to be seen. Like I feel like, you know, I did my job. And it makes me look good too, right? Or like me and the doc that worked overnight. I'm not like, it's not only me, of course, but so anyway, but like most of the night is spent that way though. It's just like picking up patients as they come in, seeing the patient, doing the examination, ordering the workup that you want to do, seeing how the labs and the imaging studies that you ordered and like the medications, if they work or not, how those work. If they work, great. If they don't, then figuring out like what other path to like go down, right? So like somebody that comes in for chest pain or whatever, say it's somebody like a 50-year-old that comes in with right-sided chest pain, or the camera's messing with me. Okay. Right-sided chest pain, right? So you rule out shut up. So like you rule out, you know, all the heart stuff, but like, okay, so like what else could cause right-sided chest pain, right? Like, you know, you ruled out pneumonia, you ruled out a heart attack, you ruled out a broken bone, you ruled out, you know, angina. What else? What else could it be? And so you got to think about, well, hey, your gallbladder's over here on the right side. So like, it could be the gallbladder's causing right side chest pain. And like a lot of the time it's that. It's things that it's important in the ER to keep a wide differential of, like nothing is face value. Like even things like, I don't know, like I got bit by a bug on my leg the other day, and now my leg is like big and swollen. Well, I can't tell you how many patients I've had like that got bit by the bug, and they're, you know, it's not a cellulitis, it's a DVT. It just so happens that like even though they got bit by a bug, they've got a big old DVT in their leg. And so like if I sent them, which is a blood clot in their leg for those playing at home. But like if I sent them home thinking that it was an ant bite, like they could be dead, right? Like, you know, they would probably come back once the antibiotics aren't working and they would be okay. But you know, it's important in the ER to keep a wide differential, like I said. So even like, yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like people just the things that can happen to the human body are just crazy. Like without like of no fault of our own, right? Like just all of it. It's like a car, right? Like you can do general maintenance on your car. You can get your oil changed every 3,000 miles or whatever. But then one day your, clutch is going to go out or something, or your radiator or whatever. Like, and that's like with the human body too. Like you can eat healthy, do everything you're supposed to do, and still at 50 years old, you're still going to have a heart attack. Like, like, I don't know. That's super morbid, and but that's the reality, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like, I don't know. Like, chat, y'all can tell us if you've ever been a patient in the ER, but like, it's scary. Like, I remember, I guess it was 2 years ago when after I had my baby, 3 weeks later, I was feeling very terrible, couldn't breathe, fever, all this stuff, and I called my husband, who's a hospitalist, and he said, "You need to go to the ER." And like I burst into tears because no one wants to go to the well, most people don't. Like I feel like normal people don't want to go to the ER. Some people might want to, but like it's scary, like because there's so much. Like if you're going to the I think if you're a reasonable person that's going to the ER for a real reason, like it's because something's something's wrong.
Right.
Like you were saying, like if someone in the middle of the night feels the need to go to the ER, like something.
Yeah, you gotta take them seriously. Right, but like. A lot of the time, and one of the crappy things about ER medicine is that, like, a lot of the time I don't know what's wrong with somebody. Like I see people that come in with abdominal pain in the middle of the night, and we do blood work, meds, CT scan, ultrasound, everything is normal. Like, why are you having pain? And it's like one of the worst pieces of news that I have to deliver is like, I don't know what it is, but I know what it isn't. Like, I know your appendix isn't ruptured. I know that you're not having a bowel obstruction. I know you don't have a surgical emergency. Same thing with chest pains, right? Like people that come with chest pain in the middle of the night, well, what was it? I don't know what it was, but I know what it's not. And like, unfortunately, there's not a chest pain test or an abdominal pain test. Like there's not a blood test that we can run that'll say, oh, you're having this pain because you have costochondritis. Like there's not anything like that. Unfortunately, there's no funding for tests that rule out conditions that are annoying.
Right.
So like, with people with pleurisy and costochondritis, all we can do is rule everything out, like rule out coronary artery disease, heart attacks, pneumonias, collapsed lung, all that stuff, pulmonary embolism. We rule out all that stuff. And that's where all the funding is like all the research has been done on tests that will save lives, not necessarily on those that will eliminate frustration. So, well,
and so that I can relate to that in Durham. Like it's the same way. Like no one researches or comes out with new meds for things that don't hurt you. And so for me, like people want, especially since they see it on their skin, they want to know why. Like, why do I have this? Why do I have eczema? Why do I have rosacea? And I don't have, all day long, I don't have answers. So, we have, 13 psoriasis medications and like nothing for eczema, like one thing that's new.
Yeah. So like keratosis pilaris, right? Like the thing like keratosis pilaris.
Yeah. Oh yeah. KP, granuloma annulare. Yeah. Pityriasis, rosea, like all these things I see all day long that it's just like, you're not dying.
Right.
That's
the good news.
You make it go away. And I'm like, no. So.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Mark asked, how do you balance productivity versus care? And it's definitely a balance, right? And so you can probably incorporate this, but somebody else asked, like, why would you start with lower acuity patients? Because that's usually what's waiting for me. That's what my coworkers tend to wait for me. Like, unless we're just slammed and there's just sick people everywhere, like they kind of, like I said, like when I first get there, I'm more of like, I call myself like, I practice in the step above urgent care when I first get there, because like they're taking the sicker patients in the back and like this certain part of the ER, and they know that like I'm going to do the procedures, right? Like, so like a laceration on someone's hand is a low acuity patient, but that doesn't mean that it's not like time intensive, right? So like the time that I spend with, depending on the laceration, is more than what I would spend, depending like on an abdominal pain, maybe, I don't know. But because they're dealing with the sicker patients, like I'm doing the more time intensive stuff, if that makes
So
sense.
the sick ones are already being taken care of. Like they
usually, yeah, like I'll prioritize if there's sicker patients to be seen, I will see them. But what I was saying was when I first get there, the people that are working know that like I'm going to do the procedures, or like I typically do.
Yeah.
That I'm going to do the procedures when I get there, just because like that's just how I work in this facility. Yeah. Like it was totally different at the other place that I worked at. But regarding the productivity versus care, like my focus isn't on my paycheck when I'm at work. Like my focus is on taking care of people. And so, like I said, like I pride myself on like clearing out the waiting room and getting people taken care of, and like, you know, ruling them out and, you know, taking away their pain and, you know, fixing what I can in the ER. But I don't think about like, oh, I'll see this patient so I can like up my numbers. Like I don't give a shit. Like my lights are going to stay on because like I'm fine. Like the salary that you'll get as a PA, regardless of what model that you know get hired under, is going to be fine. Where like you don't have to like count. I'm not counting patients that I see, or like I don't have a quota that I have to meet on my RVUs. I don't even know. I don't keep track of like what my RVUs are based on the patients that I have, because I don't even know what those numbers are. But I understand what the concern is it's like, well, are you just like seeing as many patients as you can and like not spending the time with them? And no, the goal is to get them seen, treated as quick and safely as possible. And that's just emergency medicine. Like even in, you know, now, even in like family medicine, the focus and goal is like seeing, you know, 30 or 40 patients a day. Like how many patients do you see in clinic a day, would you say?
Right now,
not in family medicine. Like I know you're not in family medicine.
Yeah. No, my schedule's at about 25. When I was like, so I switched jobs last year, and so I'm building my patient base, but I was at about 35.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was slammed. Like,
but like the offices are like pushing for seeing more patients quicker and stuff, because that's like revenue, right? But like me personally, my focus is on delivering care, quality and effective care as quick as possible in the ER. So
when I'm on the same level as you, like where, you know,
you broke up. Say that again.
I'm on a similar model, and like to be honest, that was a concern for me starting, because I was like, I don't want to be, you know, influenced by being on a productivity model. But like honestly, like you said, like I don't even think about it. Like it just,
I mean, it doesn't cross my mind when I'm at work at all. Like,
yeah, like if I'm in a negotiation, I'm going to talk about it being a commission, but I honestly think it's a bonus. Like, oh, that's cool. Like, yeah, I got rewarded for my hard work. Cool.
Right.
But yeah, I don't like look at a patient. I'm like, ooh, I get an extra.
Yeah.
Money from you if I do this. Like, no, that's weird.
Yeah. Can I look at our sheet, and I'm just going to like rapid fire some of these?
Well, yeah. And so a lot of the questions I'm seeing, okay, there's like two that keep coming up, but one is like, and I think this is important because we're talking about like being a PA, but like your autonomy level, your independence level, are you happy with it? What does that look like? What does your relationship with the doctors look like? Is there a doctor there?
Yeah, so there's always a doctor with me. And typically with PAs, there will be, unless so a guy that I graduated with, he went to go work on like an Indian reservation or Native American reservation out in like Arizona or New Mexico or something. And he was the only provider for like 50 miles or something crazy like that. Like, it was a PA. He worked in the ER. He was it for like 50 miles. It was insane. So like, but typically in a normal hospital, that doesn't make sense. Like in your typical ER, you usually won't be the only provider around. So like my autonomy here, where I work now, again, is different than at the old place. And so for lower acuity patients like lacerations, like low complexity lacerations and ankle sprains and stuff, doctors typically aren't involved unless I have a question about an X-ray, or I ask them like, hey, would you mind seeing this patient, just because I'm not sure what's going on, for lower acuity patients. For anything, so patients when you come to the ED are determined in acuity level from 5 being the lowest acuity to 1, which is like dying and or close to dying. So for 5 and 4s, typically the doctor doesn't have to be involved. For level 3 patients, which is your, you know, generally middle of the road abdominal pains, cough and fever, like edema, which is like swelling in your extremities. That's like not very common, but those are more like middle of the road level 3s. Level 2s are like chest pains, shortness of breath, stroke symptoms, and level 1s are pretty much reserved for either traumas or coding patients. So, so anyway, so on level 5 and 4s, doctors typically aren't involved unless I ask them to be. And then for everybody else, they are. They see every other one of my patients, which is what I want. At the other facility, like they kind of determined certain cases where they were required to be involved, but otherwise, like you could discharge or you could take care of the patients on your own and just kind of ask them for help if you needed it. And some of the PAs that I work with like that model where they have more freedom for sicker patients. And like me, I'm fine with either. I prefer that the docs see more of my patients than not. And I think that it's more of an efficient way when they see my patients anyway, because it's efficient. It's efficient, and it's, I think, good for patient care too. Not saying that like not being seen by a doctor is not good, but I think a lot of people now, even they see a PA and they still want to see a doctor if they come to the ER, especially like the older generation of patients. I don't look at myself as a solo provider. As a PA, like I am independent. Like I feel comfortable with my autonomy. I still do my own workups, and if the doctor wants to add something to them, they can. But I have the freedom of kind of determining what path of the workup to go down, and that's kind of what I want. But that's not for everybody. Like a lot of people want independent practice and don't want to have to, have a collaborating or supervising physician, over their shoulder all the time, which again, it's different every facility. Like some places are going to be, breathing down your neck. Your doctor that you're working under is going to be breathing down your neck about every workup that you order. But like with me, it's not like that. Like I still have autonomy. But the doctors do, still see my patients, which is, again, fine with me. I'm happy with the relationship and the structure that we have at the hospital where I'm at now. So.
Okay. Okay. I've highlighted some. Okay. I have some rapid fire yes or no questions to throw at you. So this will knock them out. Sure. If you could do it all over again, would you be a PA again?
100%. Yes.
Okay. We'll go come to that one last.
I don't know. And I know it's rapid fire. I don't know anybody that wouldn't be a PA again. Like there are people that are like, I've heard of they're like, oh, I should have just gone to medical school. But by and large, I don't know anybody that I have talked to that's like, man, I wish I didn't become a PA, for what that's worth. Like it's a long road. It's hard, but I don't know. I would do it again. Absolutely.
I agree. Do you have scribes?
Yes. So for some of the shifts we use scribes. I don't use a scribe. I'm not afforded that opportunity to use a scribe.
Would you ever go?
But I would.
What?
But I would I would use one if I could. Yeah.
Okay. Would you ever go to days?
Yeah, I think so. But for right now it works. I've got 2 young kids and it just kind of works right now. So yes, I would, but for now nights is better. I hope that's not my boss asking me. But I hope that's not my boss asking me that, trying to.
I doubt it. Has COVID made you rethink if being in healthcare was still for you?
No, it's made me like disappointed. It sounds silly. Disappointed that like this is such a problem. I don't regret going into healthcare and like putting myself at risk or like working on the front lines, being a frontline healthcare worker, Savannah. But no, it's another challenge that we have. Like, but even if coronavirus wasn't here, right? Like if coronavirus didn't exist, we would have something else that would pop up and like cause another mess like this too. Like I think personally, to get deep into coronavirus, this is going to be something that like is with us forever, like or at least the foreseeable future. Like just like flu season, like every year it's just like, oh, we got flu season. Here in like 5 years, it's gonna be like, oh, I got the corona. Probably, I would imagine. Unless like the vaccine work and all that, who knows? But yes. Yeah. All
right.
But no, I don't regret it.
What?
I don't regret.
Oh, okay.
Like healthcare or whatever.
Okay. Do you have your TCLS?
No, I don't know what that is.
Maybe ACLS? ACLS?
No, ACLS. Yeah, I have ACLS. Yeah.
I don't know if that was what they're asking or not. Do you participate in codes?
Yes. So I don't run them. My involvement in codes, I kind of like my involvement in codes. So like I help with compressions. I help bag if needed. But during codes, what I focus on is so during the night shift, if there's a code that happens at night, typically it's just me and one other doctor. Everybody else is at home. And so if a code comes in, the doctor's running it. What I do in codes is before the code comes in, if we have that luxury, we have a warning. I will talk to the doc and be like, hey, tell me what you need to get done during this code that I can help kind of expedite things along. And like, so we can still take care of patients that aren't involved in the code. So like people aren't just like sitting around wondering, well, what the hell's going on? You know what I mean? Like I want to help. I try to help facilitate flow in the ER during the code. So like, can I be involved in the code? Yeah, sure. Like I could, I've intubated before too. It just depends on how involved I want to be. Some places will not allow you to be in codes, period. They require you to have all the ACLS stuff, but they won't let you be in a code. In the middle of the, oh God, knock on, I haven't even said it yet, but I'll knock on wood. But like if two codes come in, like it's just me and the doc. So, but no, usually in codes, thank goodness, because we're a smaller hospital, usually it's just one code going on at a time. I try to help facilitate the flow outside, and that's what I want. Like, that's what I want to do. I want to like help people and like give them the care that they need. Again, and like if I can do that while the doc is on a code doing something else, while they're preoccupied doing something else, then I'll do it.
Okay. I forgot what I was going to ask you. Oh, people want to know about aggressive and violent patients, if you have had them.
Oh, yeah, sure. So I had this guy.
If you've been assaulted.
I get verbally assaulted weekly. But no, physically assaulted. I don't think I've been physically assaulted, at least nothing that like, I don't have any scars. It was a few weeks ago, this guy came in. He had been to the ER before. He had a mental illness and he was known for being aggressive. And so he came in and he was placed under the care of the hospital. They were transferring him to a psychiatric facility. And en route to the psych facility, they like brought him back because he was complaining of something or he was too aggressive. So they brought him back to the hospital after he had already been discharged and transferred over. They were like, we can't take him here because he needs to be, medically, sedated, medically restrained before we can bring him over there, just because the EMS workers were feeling at risk. So I saw him when he got back. And because they brought him back, he thought that he was going to go home, instead of going to the psych facility where he didn't want to go. And so I had to deliver the news, like, I got everybody out of the room. I closed the curtain. The door was open, but we have curtains behind the doors to kind of block. So the doors can stay open and you still can't see the patient. I was like, everybody step out. Let me just talk to this guy. And so I was talking to him. He's like, listen, man, like, can I go home? Like, just very frustrated. I'm like, no, you can't go home. You're not going home. And like he went into he was handcuffed. He went into an absolute rage and like stood up from the bed and like just started screaming this like, just rageful scream. And it was just me and him in the room. And like, so 3 security guards, like it was like in a movie, like pulled the curtain away. One of them grabbed the guy. The other one like pushed me up against the wall to like get me out of the way. Like crazy stuff. Like it didn't bother me. Like it doesn't bother me for like people to get aggressive. Like if somebody's going to be an asshole, like I have no problem being an asshole back. But like, unfortunately, people that are acutely psychotic, like you've got to think about that differently. Like you can't treat some people the same as others. Right. So, so he tried to attack me, I guess. I don't know. That's the most recent case. There was another case like, again, when I was at tech where there was a guy that was irate and it took 6 of us to hold him down, and it was me on one side of the patient and another tech who's a friend of mine on the other side of the patient, and the patient like leaned up to like bite my friend like on the face, or my coworker, well, he's my friend, coworker friend, I guess, bite him on the face, And so I, you know, like I restrained his head back to the bed before he could bite him. But, you know, like nurses all the time, they get kicked and, you know, spit on and, you know, yeah, people aren't nice all the time, unfortunately. But you just gotta, you know, hospitals typically have security that'll help keep you safe if you're ever uncomfortable with a patient. Even like now, with people that are getting healthcare experience hours now, like even if you don't feel comfortable with a patient now, like utilize security and make sure that you're not alone with somebody. But I've never been punched. One doc that I worked with got punched in a shift. But you just gotta keep your wits about you. You know, don't put yourself in a position to get punched either. Like if somebody is not getting, if you're not giving them what they want, like if somebody's coming in for like narcotics. Like just the other day, somebody came into the hospital. He comes in every like 3 days, came into the hospital wanting narcotics. And I told him like, no, like we can't do that. That's not part of your care plan. I can't give you narcotics. And he was like, well, let me talk to your doctor. So I was like, okay. Like,
I love it when the doc's going to tell them exactly the same
well,
thing.
yeah. And for the doc, so I told the doc and she's like, oh God, I don't feel comfortable going in there. I was like, well, I'll go in with you. I don't care. But like she said, last time he was there, she went in alone and he was shouting at her. And so like she felt threatened. And so I went in there with her and, you know, he was frustrated and ended up leaving. But yeah, you just can't put yourself in. She knew, like, she didn't want to put herself in a position to get put in trouble. So,
yeah.
And you never know. Like there was one person that came in like that had a gun on him, like at the old trauma center. Like they came in for, I think like suicidal thoughts or something, and they had a gun in their bag, and it's like, holy shit, like this, you know, could have been bad for everybody. Like you just don't know. You just got to be careful. So it's part of the job, but like I hate to say that, but like it's a risk. Like working in the ER is a personal risk. Working in healthcare in general is a personal risk, but especially the ER, like, you know, you see on TV, like TV shows where people come into the ER and start shooting up the place. Like that stuff happens like in, you know, big metro areas, like gang related stuff. There was, when I worked on a ambulance, one of my coworkers was telling me a story about how they went out to a call, like in a bad part of town, and they, it was a person that was found down in a parking lot that had been shot. And so the ambulance pulls up and like get out of the truck and start giving this guy CPR. And then a bunch of people were surrounding them. And somebody from the crowd was like, are you going to be able to save him? And the paramedic was like, yeah, we're doing the best we can. So then the guy pulled out a gun and shot the guy that was on the ground that had been shot a couple times. And then so we're like, forget it, you know. Yeah. But like healthcare in and of itself is a risk.
Yeah.
But like life is a risk. Like you go to Target one day and get shot, you know, like.
Well, and I mean, like you said, being aware, and like that's, so like I'm in a room sometimes with patients by myself. But like, I mean, I always have my cell phone, have my watch. I know where the door is type thing. Like, there was a derm office in Gainesville, Georgia, where we are, or like a couple hours from where I am, that had someone come in and take everyone in there hostage because they were a psychiatric patient having delusions and weren't getting the answers they wanted and were very angry at the office. And so they came in and they were able to get all the patients out, but took basically the staff hostage. And like, that's scary. And it made us like reevaluate some of our procedures and stuff. Cause you just like, I guess the way I think about it is like, honestly, like, I don't know these people. Like you don't know
right.
them. And they're,
I never like, and it's so crazy because, you know, in the ER, especially like our whole focus is to like take care of people, you know, like we like to think of it as a safe place, but like, you know, bad things still happen in ER. Like there's a statistic about how a certain number of ER patients are victims of trafficking that are there with their like, you know, what do you call the word? Like the trafficker, yeah. But like that's like a statistic, is that like traffickers bring sex trafficked people into the ERs and stuff. And like our whole goal is to take care of people the best that we can. Like that's why I go to work. Like I go to work literally because I want to take care of people, you know. But there's still risks to it, unfortunately. But there'll always be risks. Like I said, there's risks with everything you do, but
Right.
You just got to keep your wits about you.
Yeah.
So
look at the questions and see.
Yeah, I'll go through a couple. Do I recommend an ER residency? I think so. All right. So the thing with ER residencies, one of my friends did one too. The thing with residencies is that you get more training in the residency. It's like a year or a year and a half or so. You get to do things like central lines and intubations more frequently, and more procedures, more workups and stuff. Like, yes, you get to do more hands-on things like that. But even if you do a residency, so like right now, if I had an ER residency, if I did that and I came to work at my facility, I wouldn't get to do most of the things that I learned in the ER residency anyway. So like, at least without going through more like certification through like the hospital and all that, like just more red tape. ER residency is a great option. Like if you get out of school and are having you want to work in ER and you're having a hard time finding a job in the ER, it's a great option because it'll kind of set you apart from other new grads that want to go work in the ER. It'll give you a year of ER experience, which a lot of hospitals take as a minimum requirement to work in their ER. Would I have done one? Am I, upset that I didn't do one? No, I'm glad I didn't do one because I got a job right out of school. But the reason why I got a job right out of school in the ER is because I worked there as a tech beforehand. And so all of you applicants that are, working in healthcare now, like don't burn your bridges because, there's a chance that you might work there when you get out. They knew who I was. And despite me being a new grad, they only take people that have been in the ER for 2 years, but they knew who I was. They knew I was a hard worker. They had some background on me. And they took a shot on me, and I hope they think that it was worth it. But yeah,
sure it was. People want to know what you think of changing the name of PAs.
I really like Praxican or whatever. No, I don't care either way. I think the whole, I don't know. Just I don't care what you call me whatever you want.
Say yes or no. My vote is no.
Yeah, I'm fine with not changing it. If they want to change it, fine, but I'm fine with not changing it. I don't get upset about being called a physician assistant. I'm not. Me
either. That's what I went to school for.
If somebody, like, if I go to work and they're like, oh, you're an assistant, I'll be like, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's another thing too, kind of stemming off of that. What if somebody wants to see a doctor? Then I have them see a doctor. Like, no, I don't.
That's fine.
Doesn't matter to me. Yeah. I don't mind it at all. What else? What procedures do I commonly do? I do a lot of like abscess drainages. I do a lot of laceration repairs. I help with fracture reductions and dislocation reductions, which is like displaced bones. Those procedures. What else? Those are the primary ones I do. Aspirations, which is like sucking pus out of or fluid out of a wound. Those are, I think that's the bulk of the procedures that I do. What was it like adjusting to nights at first? It's just staying up really late and sleeping during the day. It's not too bad. It's just like days. I mean, you're used now. If I flip my schedule to days, I feel kind of groggy after 48 hours or so, just because my body's like, hey, why are you flipping around? But if you stay on it, it's not so bad. You just got to stay up late and, per a week or two, and you'll be all right. How do I balance family and social life with a night shift schedule? Well, I don't have a social life because of coronavirus. So, but no, working nights, like I said, I mean, like this is stuff like, this is so crazy. This is stuff that I haven't talked about like in a long time. So I'm glad we're doing this.
We never talk about our jobs.
I know, it's crazy. I know. Yeah. But so like my family life, like I said, I mean, I see my kids, I spend all afternoon with them. I eat that.
Okay. How about this? How about we go back to, you finish your shift at what?
Oh, yeah. So I finish my shift at 7 a.m. Yeah. And then I come home and I usually go to bed, but I'm usually in bed by 8 or so, unless I stay up and like, if the kids are up or something, or like I'll help with breakfast. But I'll go to bed and my wife will usually get up with the kids. If she's not up by the time I get home, she's up shortly thereafter. And so we kind of chat about, my night at work for about a half hour or so. And then she gets up with the kids and is with them until, the early afternoon or so when I get up. And then we do family things in the afternoon. So we like do family walks, or we go, for a drive. I mean, like the things that we do now because of coronavirus are pretty limited. So we either go on a family walk and or get in mommy's van and we drive around for a little while and go like pick up takeout or something. That's pretty much the extent. I started taking my little girl to the grocery store with a mask, my 4-year-old. So that's something to look forward to. But so we have dinner and then after dinner, you know, we usually, if we have time, we'll, you know, watch an episode of Daniel Tiger, or we'll like have a dance party or whatever, like play a little bit. And then it's bedtime for the girls. And then while my wife is getting them ready for bed, then I'm usually getting ready for work. And then I go to work again. Or if it's my night off, then I'm putting the girls to bed. So like when I work, my wife, her name is Allison, for all the chat. Instead of just saying my wife, Allison will, on nights that I work, Allison will put them to bed. And on nights off, I put the girls to bed. So we kind of split it up that way. So I work half the month, and so half the work she's putting them to bed, and the other half I'm putting them to bed, and doing the whole bedtime routine and everything. And then after that, on my nights off, like we hang out. Right now, we've been really heavy into watching the old show from the 90s, ER, because if I'm not working, I might as well just watch ER. So, but like we, you know, whatever, like we do like the normal thing that everybody else does, I'm sure, like watch Netflix or movies or whatever. And that's pretty much the extent. So yeah, so I'll get off at 7, go home, sleep, and then I'll be up, you know, early afternoonish or so, usually. So what else we got?
The ones I put X's beside you've kind of answered, but if you want to elaborate.
Oh, cool. Okay. Tips for getting an ER job after graduation. So when you're in school, I'm going to take a zip code for this. So when you're in school, if you know you want to do ER, one thing you can do, depending on the school and depending on how they do their clinical rotations and stuff. So preface. So at my school, we had like a little brother, big brother, or little sister, whatever program, like you are a mentor for the class below you. So like the oncoming class, I was assigned a classmate to like kind of act as a mentor and like give them guidance. And so he told me that he wanted to do ER. And so I told him, well, when you're setting up your rotations, or when the school is setting up your rotations, you can suggest or like try to find rotations that are more catered to emergency medicine. So a lot of schools you have 7 core rotations and then an 8th elective rotation. And so your core rotations are, let me see if I can remember them all: family medicine, internal medicine, psych, OB, ER, peds. What's the last one?
Surgery.
General surgery, right? And then you've got a 7th elective rotation. And so if you know you want to do emergency medicine, you'll do your ER core rotation, which is usually like 6 weeks or so. ER core rotation. You can do an elective in emergency medicine, which is another 6 weeks. So that's 12 weeks of ER. And then if you do like your surgery rotation, if it's got like some aspect of like trauma surgery instead of like general surgery, you can do that. Or you can go work at a pediatric emergency room for your peds rotation too and get another 6 weeks of emergency like experience. And so this guy, what he did was he did his ER rotation that was required. He did his elective rotation in the ER, and then he did his peds. That's what he did. He did his peds rotation in a pediatric emergency room. And so before he even graduated from school, he had 18 weeks of emergency medicine experience. And so like when he was applying for ER jobs, he was like, hey, like I know I'm a new grad, but just so you know, like I've got 4.5, 5 months of emergency medicine rotations already, or emergency medicine experience already. So because I know this is what I want to do. So like that's one way, you know, to do it, is to get as much experience in school in emergency medicine as you can. But 2, like if you really, so when you graduate school, one thing that I was told before I graduated was you can either, by and large, not for everybody, right? By and large, you can either pick the specialty that you want to work in, or you can choose your location. So like with you, Savannah, like if you want to work, I want to be in Augusta. Like you can either choose to be in Augusta, like to live there as a new grad, or you can like, and take any specialty, or you can take any specialty, or like if you want to do ER, like don't count on working and living in Augusta type deal. You know, like as a new grad, it's kind of hard to have both luxuries, you know, the specialty that you want to work in, and then the location. So it's hard. If you want, huh? What'd you say?
Yeah, I think for any most new grads, you're probably gonna have to sacrifice something in there. But. Yeah,
I mean, it's hard. Like, you know, one thing, if you want to do emergency medicine, you definitely don't want to go like, I don't know, like it's so hard now. And that's another thing we can talk about, like, before we stop or whatever, is like the job market and everything. And everybody's worried that like it's too saturated for PAs. But one thing is, if you want to do emergency medicine, like, you can either keep looking for an emergency medicine job without any experience. It's going to be hard to get at like in like a big city. So you might have to go like outside the city limits and work at a more rural hospital. So one guy I used to work with just graduated PA school and got a job at a rural hospital ER. And like, that's basically what the job was. They were like, we hire new grads because we automatically know that you're only going to be here for like a year or two and then you're going to go. Like, they just accept that. So you can find a job like that. You can try getting a job at like an urgent care. But like, you don't want to get a job in something like, I don't know, ortho or pain management or something where you're going to lose your knowledge and your skills and like have a hard time then transitioning that over to emergency medicine. Like, that just makes it a little bit harder, I think. So it's hard. You can talk to recruiters and stuff too and see if they have any openings. You might have to go and like take a locum tenens job, which is like a traveling position somewhere in Iowa or something, for a short contract just to gain experience. Or like I said, just work at a smaller county hospital. Like I said, I know I was very fortunate. I got a job at the place that I used to work at. But regarding the job market for PAs and stuff, I think it's fine. Like, right now with all this coronavirus mess, like, it has been tough. There have been PAs that lost their job and like got cut hours and everything. I think it's very, very dependent on like the region that you live in. Some regions have been a lot more affected than others. You know, another thing is that jobs for PAs aren't always posted on like Indeed or, you know, monster.com, if that still exists. A lot of jobs that you get as PAs come through like word of mouth. So like people that you either went to school with or that you know from like your healthcare experience or whatever, like they aren't posted on one of those websites, or like even, you know, because a lot of jobs as PAs are through physician groups, not through hospital groups. And so like, unless you know the name of the physician group, like I'm not a hospital employee. I haven't been a hospital employee. And so like, if I went on the hospital website, I wouldn't find a job for a PA in the ER because the ER isn't staffed by the hospital, it's staffed by a physician group. So, yeah, so just because you don't see a bunch of job openings on like the public websites and everything, that doesn't mean they don't exist. So when you get out, I'm just going back and forth. But when you get out, too, what you can do is like send your resume out to physician groups. Like, if you learn, so like big physician groups like Apollo, Kaiser, and other big, you know, multi-state or national groups, you can send your resume out to them and just, you know, be like, hey, here's my resume, or send it to the hospital physician group. Like, here's my resume. I'm interested in, you know, joining as a PA or whatever. That's another way. If they have an opening that hasn't been posted, you can try and get a job too. So like, my job that I have now wasn't posted publicly. I heard about it from somebody that I knew. So.
Yeah, I was offered a job on my ER rotation and they weren't like publicly hiring.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And then both of the jobs I've had, neither one were posted jobs.
Yeah. Can we talk about burnout?
Sure.
How much time you got? Like 3 more hours?
We might burn out if you take that long.
Yeah. I think ER burnout is a real thing. There's a PA, Harrison Reed, he did an article in like JAPA or something, didn't he, on burnout?
Does he do ER? No.
Well, he's academic now. I don't know.
I don't know what his practice is. I
don't know if he used to, yeah. But Harrison Reed, he writes articles for JAPA, which is the journal for the AAPA. If you're an AAPA member, you'll get the JAPA magazine. But I think burnout is very real. In the ER and like a lot of specialties too. Like, a lot is do what?
I mean, like I experienced when I want to know like when you felt like you started to feel burnt out.
I think it depends on the day though. Like I'll go through, you know, like I'll go in and out just kind of depending on like if I've worked like 5 days in a row, like by the end of that stretch, I'm kind of like, I'm a little less friendly. Like at the end of my shift, I'm a lot less cheery than I am at the beginning of my shift too. And like, that's just, I'm just kind of ready to go home and get out of there. I feel less burnout now than I did working at the trauma center. So I worked at the trauma center for 4 years, and it was a great job. I loved it. I loved everybody that I worked with. But after seeing like so many, like kind of like I mentioned before, like gunshot wounds and like stabbings and traumatic car accidents and like pediatric trauma and arrests and stuff, like that kind of stuff takes a toll on you. And like, I'm fine. Thanks, therapy. No. No, but seriously, like that kind of stuff takes a toll on you after a while. I didn't feel like I was burnt out at the trauma center, but now that I left and kind of looking back on it, I think that I kind of was, like, to a certain extent. Like my personality is totally different, I think, at this new job, or I've been here for 2 years now, or over 2 years, versus like at the end of my job at the other place, just because I don't see that terrible stuff anymore, or, you know, nearly as much. Like we still get gunshot wounds every once in a while, but it's not every day. And so, but I did it before as a tech too, you know, as an ER tech. I worked in the ER at the trauma center. And so like, it was just seeing a lot of that stuff. And I think that some people it doesn't bother nearly as much, or that doesn't affect them nearly as much. But even now, I mean, you still have rough shifts now, even if it's not trauma, it's just sick freaking people, man. Like,
and it's the burden of, I think, just healthcare.
Yeah.
Because that's what I have 3 like best friends from PA school, and 2 of them are in derm, and one is in she was in vascular surgery originally. Now she's in like oncology, like a clinical oncology practice. And so when we went to AAPA last year, Shelly, who was with me, like we talked a lot just about, and there were a lot of good lectures about burnout there. Because at that point we were both about 5 years out of school and like really, really, really feeling it.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to like, and not to like I know you're a dad and stuff, like as a mom, like it's very difficult to feel like you're having to manage a lot of different things.
Sure. Yeah.
And like managing a household and being a good mom and being a good PA. And like,
yeah,
that was where I was at last summer, where I told my husband, I was like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything well. Like I'm barely doing all of these things and none of them are getting done well. Like at work, I'm thinking about home. At home, I'm thinking about work. Like I'm frustrated everywhere. And so I think like switching jobs like you did, like that has helped a lot. But the PA community is also just very supportive of each other. And I think that's very helpful too. Yeah. But I don't think you should go into medicine with like rose-colored glasses thinking it's all easy and great, because there's a lot of really hard stuff.
Well, I remember, I mean, just like looking back, right, when I first started, I mean, everything was just so cool. I mean, like going home and like talking about what I did in the ER today, whereas now you don't get that same feeling. And that's not burnout, I don't think. I think it's just you get kind of desensitized because you see it all the time.
Yeah.
I think burnout is more just like, I don't know, more personal, like kind of along the lines of like almost like a feeling of frustration and inadequacy, like to a certain extent. Like, I don't know, it's like a snowball effect. Like it can keep growing on you. But I think it's important to be mindful of that, regardless of what your job is now. I mean, even as, you know, pre-PAs working as like CNAs or in a doc's office as an MA or whatever, you can get burned out doing anything, but it's important to just kind of take a step back and realize like how fortunate and lucky you are for having a job, first of all, but like two, getting to do something where you are able to have an effect on people that you don't know. Like people are genuinely, you know, by and large, people are genuinely thankful for the job that you do, both as PAs and like even beforehand. I mean, you know, even if they don't say it, you know, I don't remember the last time I was like thanked, you know, for like the job that I do, you know, like, which is fine. Like, I don't expect that. Like, I don't go to work like expecting to be thanked, but like, I know that people are thankful for, what me and what everybody at the hospital does. And even, like I said, I mean, even as pre-PAs, like the stuff that chat is doing right now is like, you're truly making a difference in people's lives. Like what you're doing, regardless of what you're doing now, hell, you could like I said, I mean, be working as a MA or a CNA or a ophthalmology tech or, you know, physical therapy aide or whatever. Like you at some extent, you're making a difference in somebody's lives. And that's what's important, like, is keeping that in mind. And so on days where I get frustrated, like I had a bad day at work, or, you know, I go home and like, I don't want to go back to work the next day or whatever, I constantly try to like I said, take a step back and realize like how lucky and thankful and fortunate I am to like be in this position, despite my bad day. Like everybody has bad days, but that goes with everything in life too, right? Like you just got to be as thankful as possible with everything that you're provided with one way or another. So
yeah, and I think even like you're impacting patients' lives, but also like the people you work with and your coworkers.
Yeah, sure.
That was the only really thing that kept me going at my old office was my medical assistant, just because she was so amazing and so positive and so encouraging that when she saw how frustrated I was with things, she helped me a lot. And so
yeah.
I think like you can look for those opportunities too.
Well, a lot of it,
and help. Like, and that's, I mean, like, you know, and I also very, very strongly believe after making some changes that if you are not happy somewhere or you're not being valued, or worse, you're really being used, it's, you can make those changes in your life, because it's not worth being completely unhappy either.
Right. Yeah. I feel like we could literally talk about
burnout forever, and just like the problems with medicine and healthcare and
yeah. Well, maybe we should. So
but yeah.
I think I went through all of the or most of the questions.
Yeah, we touched on. I think after listening to this and watching this, people should have a very good understanding of what your job is.
Yeah, I hope so.
That's the purpose. So.
And if people like have additional questions, like when we could do this again, I wouldn't mind. But like they can reach out to. I'm on Instagram at, you know, the MyPA resource handle. If you don't,
I put it in the chat.
Okay, cool. All right.
So people can find you.
Okay. All right.
I post your handle a lot, so I'm probably post it again tonight. But
we're gonna do the poll. Do the poll where we figure out if people have applied or if they haven't, or if they're applying next year, just so we can kind of get an idea of where everybody's at in the process. People are asking why PA over NP. So when I was going through, while you're figuring that out, I'll answer this question because I've seen a couple. So I got my degree in microbiology, my undergrad degree in microbiology from the University of Tennessee. When I graduated, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to work in a lab, but I didn't. I hated it. And so I was trying to figure out, I knew I wanted to work in healthcare doing something. I thought I wanted to be a doctor, but I, couldn't because of my grades, which is a whole nother video session. So I was trying to figure out what I could do. And so I looked at the nurse practitioner program, right? So they have a bridge program. Some places have bridge programs where people that get their bachelor's degree in any subject can go and take a 3-year bridge program where you get your, I think RN and or BSN and NP. I don't know if those still exist, but I looked at doing that. But then I looked at the PA profession. I was like, well, why go through that process if I could just be a PA instead? So the jobs are very different, which I didn't realize back then, or at least not the jobs, but the training is very different. At least it was back then. And but either way, like now I work with plenty of NPs and PAs, and like you wouldn't know the difference between us working in the ER. So we get to do the same things now.
Yeah, and in Georgia, PAs and NPs are very similar in what we're able to do.
Yeah.
So it looks like about half are applying now, and then like 33% next year, and then 20% in 2 to 4 years.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Well, good to know.
All good stuff. Oh, I need to announce the next one.
Yeah.
So people say you should do a podcast with me.
We did one like 2 years ago. We should do an updated one. When was the?
Yeah, I think you come on like once a year. Like it probably is time though. So yeah, Brian, I have a podcast called the Pre-PA Club, and Brian is on it sometimes.
I forget.
This will I'll post this on there in the next few months, like so people who aren't listen. But
we did a personal statement one, and then we did what I forget what the second one we did was.
I don't remember either. We may have done 2 personal statement ones.
Oh, they're both? Okay.
But I don't remember either, so I'm not sure. But let me pull up my calendar and grab the link. So that is not my calendar. The next virtual shadowing event, which I'm very excited about, is with a PA named Tony, who is in Sacramento, California, and he went to USC Keck School of Medicine. He's been a PA for about a year. Fun fact, he went to PA school with his twin brother, which I think is kind of cool, that they were in the same class together. But he does family medicine and street medicine. So we actually talked today, and he did a podcast interview, which I'll be posting on the podcast next Friday, about his job. But like even I had so many more questions and wanted to know more, because it sounds like, number one, his passion for what he does is like contagious and so cool.
It's like ours.
Huh?
It's like ours.
Yeah, like ours. No, but like you are so cool. So anyway, so his like passion is like and just his involvement and everything with this organization that he's actually started is so cool. So he's going to be talking about that on September 10th, which is also a Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And so I'm going to post a link. So we are doing this as a fundraising event for Sacramento Street Med. So it's $5 if you want to either watch it live or have the replay. And all of the proceeds, profits, whatever you want to call it, is going straight to their startup, because they are they're already doing outreach. We'll talk about opportunities, ways to get involved, but like it's really cool. And so like it's really cool how he talks, like you'll hear if you listen to the podcast or if you come to it, but like talks about what he calls people who are experiencing homelessness, or people without homes, like
interesting.
People who live outside. Like even from his talk, like I learned so much. Like you don't call people homeless people. Like
right.
And just hearing about, I don't know. He got into a bunch of stuff about like just kind of the mindset of taking care of different kinds of populations. So really cool. But let me find that link real quick, and then we will get you all set up. And if anyone wants to do that, and then I'll send out the replay information too. So
okay. This was fun.
Yeah, it's fun to like talk about your job, right?
Yeah. Well, and thanks everybody for like submitting questions and stuff, because if it weren't for the questions, I would have just rambled on about some nonsense, and which probably would have been entertaining anyway. But I appreciate y'all listening and being involved and active in chat.
Yeah. So. Okay, I'll put it up here. All right. Well, y'all are awesome. If you have any questions, send them to us on social media. Yeah, follow. I'm on the @myPA resource, and Savannah's is @the PA platform. Yep. All right. Thanks, y'all. All right. See you guys. Thanks, Brian. See ya. Thanks.